Phanteks recently decided to buy a bunch of white paint and re-release a couple of their products in a new white shining glory. Luckily for me, because now I have the perfect opportunity to check out their monstrous Evolv X case in its new matte white edition. But before I digress into some random intro part, let's just start with the case, cause if there is one thing I've learned with the Phanteks P500A, then that there is a lot to talk about. The new Evolv X comes in a really impressive way. Not only is it covered in some black sleeve to protect it from any scratches, but I have never seen that amount of styrofoam and carton thickness being used for a case. But do not believe that this is unnecessary. All of this protection is not for the Evolv X in case you drop the box, it is for your floor. Coming in at exactly 13.5 kilograms, the Evolv X is definitely one of the heaviest cases we've seen so far. But the impressive part goes on. Inside the box we'll not only find the Evolv X, but also this impressively looking box of little extras. Inside we will get 4 hard drive brackets, a vertical GPU mount, an anti-sag bracket, an airflow cover, and a neatly organized box of screws. We will get to each of those things in details a bit later on. But then there's also this. I have never seen such a well-made manual. In here, absolutely everything is being explained with images, tips and tricks, and everything is understandable as far as it could be to be explained to a person who has never even touched a PC before. Overall, the unboxing part of the case can be just summed up with a single word. Wow! If Phanteks wanted to create a feeling of being impressed, they did a pretty good job here. But now let's get to the one thing inside of the box we have not covered yet, the actual case. This is Phanteks Evolv X in its newest matte white finish. Previously we had a Satin Black, Anthracite Grey and Galaxy Silver edition, but except for the color, all of them are kind of exactly the same. Standing like that, the case is around 525mm high, 515mm long and 240mm thick, while standing on 2 very stable feet which perfectly integrate into the case's design. Although the case is impressively heavy and big, it still counts as a mid-tower case, with the exterior made entirely out of anodized aluminum and the interior out of thick steel. And no, nothing in here wiggles, even in the slightest. How could it? It weighs over 13 kilograms. Inside we will find the space for up to 80X and E80X motherboards, so you can do whatever you want on here. For the CPU, the case is wide enough to accommodate coolers that are up to 190mm high, and for the GPU we can go with up to 435mm long cards, though I am really not aware of any card that is that long. Inside the Evolv X, the GPU can be either installed horizontally in one of those 7 reattachable PCIe brackets, or vertically using one of the 3 reattachable vertical PCIe brackets. Now, 2 things about this. First of all, a 3-slot GPU in vertical is really impressive and it is not so often seen out there. And you need to get a separate available PCIe riser cable from Phanteks themselves that will fit into that vertical mounting. I know it's annoying, but that's just how it's going to be. And to finish it off, 2 tempered glass side panels, 1 for each side. With the most general stuff covered, let's do something I have never done before. How do I actually open the case? Unlike every other case whose side panels are installed on hinges, no part of the case will even start to budge at the moment you will get it. This is because we have the possibility to lock every part of the case using thumb screws, a state in which the case also ships. To open up everything, we first need to remove the front panel by pulling it out on the top and then lifting it out whilst pulling it up. And please do not try to do that in the bottom, you will just break those clips. From there we will find the 4 thumb screws that are holding the side panels in place. And after removing all of them, both can be freely opened and closed and even completely removed from their hinge once they are opened far enough. Although I think it's pretty good that both panels are locked into place for shipping, I think it's even better that you are not absolutely required to permanently attach them once you are finished with your PC. There are magnets on each of the side panels, so it will keep in place perfectly fine. But let's say you have a small toddler running around who's trying to kill himself every 10 seconds by licking a 3090's power plugs. Well, just put the screws back in place and your 3090 is safe. The last important piece of disassembly is the top. For this one we need to remove both screws in the back of the case and pull back before lifting it up. And this one, however, you will really want to put the screws back on because it will just slide out all the time and it gets really annoying really quick, so just put them back on. Okay, now where we know how to actually open the case, let's get to the specifics, starting off with storage. If you remember how many drives could be installed inside a P500A, well, the Evolv will set a new record for regular consumer cases. For SSDs, we first got 3 spots behind the motherboard area, all good for now, but before you might think that these rubber pieces are some kind of protection, these are actually pins for SSD mountings. So to jump a bit ahead into the cable management section, the back of the case is covered by those 2 really big steel cable hiders. Once they are opened by pressing on those latches, we will see the full extent of cable management hiding inside of here. We will go over this in a minute, but let's get back to those 6 additional 2.5-inch SSD spots. That makes a total of 9 SSDs for now. What the hell? The only thing to note here is that the mountings behind the motherboard plate require each one of Phanteks' additional SSD brackets, which are of course only available separately. Now for 3.5-inch drives it doesn't get any less. Included in the box that we showed in the beginning, we have 4 of Phanteks stackable hard drive brackets. These can be installed in 2 separate spots in the very front of the PSU compartment in the bottom. Though you need to keep in mind that using 2 of them limits the PSU to 250mm and using all 4 limits it down to 195, though keep in mind 195 is enormous. Also important to note here is that each of those brackets can also be used to fit a 2.5-inch drive in there. To make things even weirder, we also have those cable covers. Again, that's for the cable management section actually, but if we remove each of them by using the thumb screw in the back, we can get up to 6 additional hard drive brackets and use that spot to stack the hell out of that area with drive after drive after drive. It's crazy. To make some sort of count, in total we are looking at 9 SSD spots, 3 behind the motherboard area and 6 behind the cable management hider plates, and then we have a total of 10 hard drive spots, 4 behind the PSU and 6 in the front of the case. So we are looking at a total of 9 SSDs and 10 hard drives. Or if you want to go all SSDs, 19 SSDs. 19 in a mid-tower that looks like this. 19. I could not fit 19 SSDs into my Dell or 510? Yes, Dell or 510. And I can stack them in here. That thing is crazy. The next important point on my list is the overall fan and cooling situation inside of here. A big part of this, and by far my favorite feature of this case, is the built-in fan hub. It is located at the top front edge behind the motherboard. That thing comes with 3 3-pin headers and 5 4-pin headers. To power it, there is a SATA power cable coming out somewhere in the case, as well as a 4-pin which you can use to control all of the fans from your motherboard software. A very important point to note though is that the 4-pin which controls the hub does not require you to control it using a 4-pin PWM signal. The controller is actually small enough to take a 3-pin voltage control signal and then translate that into a 4-pin and 3-pin and spread it across all of its own headers. I'm unsure what weird ass mainboard you need to come with to make that a situation, but I mean it's always good to have a fallback. Once you get the case, it doesn't come empty though. Pre-installed in here we will get 3 unnamed white 140mm Phanteks ARGB fans. Even if the fans are not specifically mentioned as being some sort of specific model, they do look kinda suspiciously like Phanteks SK140 RGB fans in white. I don't want to get too deep into them because we already had exactly the same inside the P500A, and to put it short, these are really good fans and they are perfectly capable of staying inside here. To be honest, 3 of those 140s are more than enough for a finished build. So in the end, you are perfectly able to get this case, build a system in here and not even invest a single cent into additional fans, as these will not only get you going, but they will also do a pretty good job at the same time. You can of course get more and then stuff the system until it starts to take off. That would be even better, but out of the box it is actually enough for a normal build. But what about not normal builds? How far can we push it? Well, pretty far. The front of the case allows for a total of 3 140s or 120mm fans behind the very airflow fabric dust filter. The back of the case allows for both a 120 or a 140mm fan. 140 per watt in the back. And the top allows for either 2 140s or 3 120 fans. And just as a fun fact, because I tried it, you can go with 2 140 fans and a single 120 fan in the top. It fits, without any wiggle, but it fits. On a small side note, the PSU also got a fabric dust filter removable from the back. Now, the airflow situation in here is really interesting. But to be honest, when I first saw the case on images online, I thought that these slots here in the front will never going to be enough to let enough air in. Fortunately, I was proven wrong. Those slots are way bigger than I initially thought. I mean, I can squish 2 fingers in there. There's a lot of space. And the whole cooling concept works perfectly fine, and it lets enough air in for those potential 3 140 fans that you could stack behind it. Just to have some numbers, we tested all of this by simply removing the front panel and then comparing how much the temps dropped using the 12900K, a Cooler Master ML240, and 3 of those original D140 Phanteks whatever RGB fan. And in the end, the temps did not drop a degree, they went up a degree. I have no idea why it should not do that, but I mean, margin of error. So the end result is the temps did not change. So no, these holes are perfectly fine, there is enough air coming in and nothing will be choked whatsoever. So yeah, no worries for frontal airflow. Sure, being full mesh will always be better, but this is more than enough. I mean, a degree up for whatever reason. The second interesting airflow part of the case is that top panel there, especially because you might end up using it wrong and that will be really detrimental for your temps. Once the top panel is removed, we have access to all of the fan spots underneath it. Additionally to being very accessible already, we can also loosen those 2 screws and completely remove the bracket, allowing us to install the fans and radiator outside of the case. Very convenient and way easier to use like that. But you might also have noticed that contrary to most other cases, inside the Evolv X, the fans are not directly squished against some filter and then just blowing out. Instead, they are essentially blowing into a separate compartment, which is then letting the air out through those little slots. Now, to make things very clear, a separate chamber like this one, especially with the amount of slots that are in there, will not be the best performer in no world. Straight out will always be better. However, this is still more than enough considering how much you can push through it, so the performance loss will be negligible at best, but at the same time this method acts as a sound damper. Not being pressed against the outside allows the noise to be slightly blocked by that second chamber so that the system overall appears to be a bit quieter. And just to prove it by numbers, we also have removed the top panel to have a comparison, and the temps were exactly the same, 100% for like 15 minutes, while the noise difference was like this. That being said, you need to use the top fan spots right, otherwise you will lose performance. Due to the fans pushing air into a second chamber, this can very quickly create turbulences. The issue that this creates comes up if you do not fill the bracket in the top. In that case, the air will hit the top panel and then it might just travel back into the case by that leftover hole you just left over, and that's not what we want. Having every spot filled does not leave any space for the air to travel back, thus it is forced to go out at the top. Instead of forcing you to do a weird ass fan setup like 2 140s and 1 120 to fill everything, Phanteks includes this little airflow cover for the top panel. This can be used for the fan spot which is not used, thus allowing you to use 2 140s or 2 120s and just call it a day. So for the top panel, generally you can go with front in and back out, that will do the job with the fans inside here, no problem. But if you really want to make it better by putting more fans in, sure, you can do that, but make sure to fill the whole bracket by using either 3 120s or a weird thing like two 140s, one 120 setup, or two whatever you want, but think about putting that airflow cover on. Otherwise, you would just start recycling the hot air. With the impressive fan situation out of the way, water cooling support is just as impressive. Inside the Evolv X, we are looking at a 120 or 140 radiator in the back, a up to 360 or 280 radiator in the top, and a up to 420 radiator in the front. A freaking 420 radiator inside a mid-tower case. That's first for me and freaking amazing, because I can now finally use that Alpha Cool 420 red that has just been sitting around, and I have used it as a tray for my thermal paste. Yeah, that's not the best use case for 420 red. But it really doesn't end here. If we remove those cable covers again, we can find special mounting holes for reservoir installations on the side. Additionally, we can also get a separately available pump bracket, allowing to install a pump on the HDD spots in the bottom. And to get even crazier, Phanteks made sure to leave fill and drain ports inside of the top bracket as well as the front of the case. Now that's what I call caring. At this point, I would also like to reference back to that insanely accurate manual that Phanteks provides, in which they exactly measured how long, wide and thick every radiator can be. Absolutely amazing that we have those numbers. I just can't verify them. I don't have enough radiators, but still I am very happy that we have them. Next point in this already very long video is RGB. As already mentioned before, the fans are coming with Phanteks DRGB connection, which is just a 3-pin ARGB using a proprietary connection. But that's not all. Alongside the PSU tunnel, we have that same type of RGB stripe we already saw on the P500A that just looks awesome. And then to top it off, we got two RGB strips that are backfiring on the case from the inside of the front panel, creating this passive light type of thing, and I freaking love it. Then the best part about the front panel is how these LEDs are powered. Instead of annoying us with a bunch of unnecessary amount of wires, Phanteks used a cable-ish push-pin system that connects once the front panel is closed. Super convenient, and I'm always amazed when companies use these types of connection. All of that RGB control does not come from some unicorn hiding somewhere though. For now, all of it is provided using Phanteks' built-in RGB controller that is hiding behind the I/O panel. Speaking of which, the I/O panel is kind of hidden. At the top of the front panel, we have that little latch that we can fold up, revealing the perfect I/O. Two USB 3.0, a 3.1 Gen 2 Type-C port, audio in and out, as well as two buttons to control the ARGB inside of the case. One controlling the mode and the other one controlling the color. And here again, I would like to point back to that incredible manual which explains all of the RGB controller options way better than I ever could in a single image. I don't know who wrote that manual, but he deserves a praise. Coming back to the I/O panel to finish it off, we have a separate power button which is located at the top of the case, including a bit of RGB. Now, although all of the ARGB cables in here for both the fan and controller are technically using Phanteks' proprietary DRGB port, they do come with an expansion option for more Phanteks stuff, as well as a normal 3-pin expansion header, allowing you to just add more generic ARGB stuff. And to top it off, we also get a motherboard control header, which allows us to totally ignore any of Phanteks' proprietary stuff and just straight up jump to motherboard control. Just don't forget to provide the controller with SATA, otherwise it just won't do anything. So due to the proprietary and unproprietary forwarding and input options, I do not even mind that whole DRGB thing, and I believe that the whole controller concept turned out perfectly fine and I am perfectly happy with it. And now let's get to the last important point of the case. Cable management, something that Phanteks is usually very good at. Ignoring the usual holes we always have around the motherboard area, we also got that iconic Phanteks GPU cable hider piece and all of those cable covers, creating these really clean cable setups without being actually good at cable management. That being already really good on its own, the back got even more. Here we got two separate cable routes, each featuring a ton of Velcro strips to get these cables as close to the case as possible, and from there, no matter if you are happy with your cabling or not, you can close them behind those big ass panels anyway. And those panels are really important. As mentioned in the very beginning, the back of the case got its own tempered glass side panel, and no matter how well you think you route these cables, this will always be easier and it will always look cleaner. So cable management wise, you have a lot of options and a huge amount of space, but in case you screwed it up, Phanteks will just hide your shameful creation. Phew, that was one hell of a wild ride, my god. To finish the possible features, we have a couple of extras. First off would be an anti-sag bracket, which is included in that neatly packaged box. I still don't get it. A GPU sag's here, not there. What does that thing do? And then we have the insane stuff, which I can't get into. Like, just like the P500A, the Evolv X supports full-on dual systems, like 2 motherboards, 2 CPUs, 2 everything. Of course, that's one of the things which needs to be purchased separately, and there's a bracket for that I do not have, and you will sacrifice a bunch of stuff like top airflow spots and here and there. But as I don't have the bracket, I don't want to get into dual systems, otherwise I would just be speculating. That being said, what was good inside the Phanteks Evolv X and what could have been better? In my opinion, this case is freaking amazing. I love it. Build quality wise, it is insanely well made, sturdy and well thought through. The cable management is a real asset in here. The compatibility, especially the radiator support, is more than I could dream of. The I/O is exactly what I need, and I love the RGB and fan controller. The fan support is perfectly suited for everything you could imagine. Wanna go with a 12900K? Full water cooled? Sure, just go, nobody cares. The amount of expansions and stuff like dual system is kinda ridiculous, but it's nice that cases exist that can do that. And as a special mention, I do not know who wrote the manual, but great job. Really great job. Design wise, it will always be an opinion thing. Me personally, I am all for those edges and that edge style design with the passively illuminated front. I think it looks amazing, but I know it will always be up to yourself. On the could have been better side, I don't have really much. Actually, one thing is really a legacy thing, and it is that thumb screw on those cable covers. Unfortunately, only one side of the cover is kept in place by a screw. The other one is kind of a plastic dip that needs to be unhooked by sliding it to the very front. The issue with that is that out of the box, the cables for the fans will be going through those, making it impossible to get them out without completely untangling and unhooking the fan cables. Ditching that second clip for a second thumb screw would completely solve the issue, and I think Phanteks should redo that. And then there's my beloved fan controller. Although I believe it's amazing, I really do, I also believe it needs to be upgraded. I don't get why there are still 3-pin headers on there. Just replace them with 4-pin PVM and you will be up to the latest standard. Now, because of how the controller works, you're actually also perfectly able to connect a 4-pin PVM fan to one of those 3-pin headers, and it will be controlled just like any other fan. And that's pretty cool. But due to the tight space between those 3-pin headers, you will need to press the hell out of those 4 pins to get everything in there. So my best advice would be to either exchange the 3-pin for 4-pin headers or make the whole controller just a bit wider so that you can install 3 4-pin fans into the 3-pin headers without any unconsensual pressing. But okay, I think this should be it for the already ridiculously long video. For the few people that kept watching until here, thank you for watching. Usually I try to keep the videos a bit shorter, but this thing was just... it was packed with features and I thought it was important to name all of them. In case it wasn't already obvious enough, I recommend it absolutely. I think it is an amazing case. It is going for around 200 bucks right now, and I believe that it is a perfectly fair price considering the behemoth of a case that you're getting. And not to forget, it weighs 13.5 kilograms. Already the material is expensive. So yeah, this should conclude this insanely long review, and at this point I would also like to thank Phanteks for providing us this amazing monster. And if you want to keep watching, have a look at the Phanteks P500A case, which after today dropped to the second spot of my favorite cases out there. Oh, and on a side note, we also have a Discord server, so if you want to keep up with everything, make sure to use the link in the description below to join. Anyway, thank you for watching and hope to see you in the next one. Bye bye.